Hi everybody, welcome back to Shipbuilding X and my Stormworks Sea Trial series. This time we're going to be doing the sea trials of Spider's largest creation, or at least the largest one that's on the workshop. That's the Condor Mk.1. Again, it's a search and rescue response ship, and at 55 meters long, you can see here, it's the largest one. It's got a few extra features which the other vessels don't have. Of particular note is a helicopter, a large rigid inflatable boat, a rib, a diving compartment, and that makes it a whole kind of different kind of ship. It's very good for multiplayer. As you know, Spider makes the creations very optimized so that you don't get too much lag, even though it's a 55-meter ship. And there's a few interesting things here. So you can see, because it's a more complex ship, Spider's created these GIFs or animations teaching you how to get the helicopter in the hangar. And as some of you who've tried this before will know, that if you don't duck when you get out of this helicopter, the main rotor decapitates you. So a little bit of fun. So let's jump into Stormworks. Here's the vessel. I'm just going to fly around a little bit. So it's pretty much using up the whole of the standard editor box on the standard creative base, as you can see there. And she's pretty nice, purposeful lines, high freeboard there at the front to break through the waves. And she's got this nice double working deck at the back. So there's a fully open deck for the helicopter, and then you've got a half open deck below here for the rib, which you can, you'll see in the tour, but the rib is down below there. But there's no windows in, so it's what you call it's still an open deck effectively. These two big side doors, which I actually thought were new on the Stormwild OSV, but they're actually been on this vessel, which has been out for quite a while. And I'll do a quick slice through. So again, I actually had a bit of a conversation with Spider on my YouTube channel on the comments. These void spaces, as I said, there are void spaces on real vessels. But perhaps not as big as these void spaces here. But basically, Spider has these void spaces because of Stormworks physics. So if you add too many compartments, too many details, the vessels just will not perform very well. So this is the kind of optimum level of interior detail if you want a ship that doesn't lag too much. I'm also looking at Harley, sorry if I misquote your name, but he's got a few videos about optimizing Stormworks builds. I'm going to have a look at those and test some of his creations. But let's just jump in this great ship and give her our sea trials. So this one does lag ever so slightly. Let me just double check my settings here. It's not a criticism. So on full physics, okay, it's very little. So nothing like the MSV post. As you can see here, it can sort of run and jump over easily. We'll start at the back as usual. And of course, when I talk about any of these things lagging or missing rooms, it's not a criticism to the creators. That's simply the limitations of the game. So you have to kind of work around these things. And Spider, to my opinion, really does the best job of making a functional vessel that you can use well in the game, making something that feels realistic, the way it handles and the waves. But also making something that doesn't lag, and that's why I really like using them to play in the game. So we've got our helicopter here, little winch at the back, I guess, which you use for maneuvering the helicopter along these rails. I don't think I've flown this helicopter. It's quite a big one, 4 seats with 6 kind of rescue perches on the side. I have been in with my friends. They've flown it. It seems to work fine. And what we couldn't figure out is how to fold it. So I think, you have to go up there and point at the rotors, and you can fold these two sets of rotors. It wasn't immediately obvious, but you can detach these rope anchors and you can pull it into this kind of pretty spectacular helicopter hangar. So in here, plenty of space. You basically hook up, you actually can just push it along on these rails here. There's basically no friction. Maybe with the friction blocks, that's something that will be quite nice to have a little bit more friction on this. And you could winch it in. There is a winch here, but it's actually not needed. You can literally just push that along with your player. In here we've got firefighting equipment, the usual stuff, except we've got some parachutes here because you might want to jump in that helicopter to go on a helicopter mission. Yeah, winch controls here. I assume there's a refueling point for the helicopter. I didn't do a proper tour of that deck, did I? So we've got the ship fueling here. I'm pretty sure that's the standard ship fueling, and helicopter I think is inside. Yeah, otherwise, yeah, just a big working deck here. We do have a cargo elevator which you can activate from here. Automatic lights, good storage here for ropes if you're doing anything with the ropes out the back there. Some nice piping work in here, it's good to see that, and actually some nice sort of detailing on the ceiling there. Working my way forward here, I did notice there's this nice side compartment here. I love these kind of slanting windows, it gives it a real nautical feeling. And you've got here an egress, basically you jump off the ship from this, as far as I can tell. Probably in real life you would have some kind of slide, but that's quite realistic that exists at all in here, so great work. Yeah, what I really like about this is this viewing window that we can actually, from a tween deck, or a deck which is kind of splits this space in half, you can see down. So forward of the helicopter hangar, we've got here our passenger space, which is a feature of all of Spider's works. You can actually take quite a lot of people at one time in the vessel. You have here hospital space, slightly different color from what I remember, actually doubled up here. So a pretty good facility. You can have 4 injured people in here. This is just the same as the other one, so it's emergency egress, as you can see there, jumping off. But it's nice, you've actually got the shelter of being inside and then going outside but still being completely sheltered from the elements, which is very nautical, and I approve. We'll go down first before we go up. So we've got here the crew mess. It's a bit more of a canteen actually than the other vessels. We've got much more space in here. I really wish that multiplayer worked to the extent that you could have in here, you know, sort of 20 people and have sort of all sorts of role playing going on here. Very nice little painted blocks here for the vending machines and some recycling bins. In here, simplified canteen, it does the job. It's just purely decorative, but that's enough for the main purposes. Working forward here, again, it's just a more or less an empty space, but you've got some access here to the deck above. So that's pretty important when you're in a ship. You want to have as many ways to get out of it when it's flooded. So if you're ever on a ship, these are the things that you look for. These are the ways which the crew might know about, typically on a vessel, but maybe not the passengers. But if the vessel is flooding, you certainly want to have as many ways as possible to get out. And I had a look, you know, in that section view here, and there's actually a lot more space forward of this bulkhead, but it's simply not used. It's void space here. So I think Spider here is just, you know, trying to make the space useful here and adding a bunch of extra sort of useful space. I'm going to just put on my scuba gear here and you will see why in a minute. And yeah, I would put that on if I could into one of these cupboards. Okay, we'll come back. So I've got my scuba gear on. You'll understand very clearly why in a moment. Working our way aft of this canteen, which is below the main deck, below the helicopter deck at least. This is probably the main deck of the vessel. And you've got this kind of cargo storage utility area with those two, probably just not quite close enough. There you go. So this is called a hangar, and these kind of what I call folding balconies. You can see it's a huge vessel here, really long, really impressive feel in the dry dock here. Both sides, and then behind this we have the rib space. So this is actually a pretty big rib. It's a bit like the one you get in the career mode these days. Might even have, no, it's a small engine, so it's not updated yet to have a modular engine. That's refueling as far as I remember. This is the refueling setup here on the right. Nice little windshield. I'm just going to jump in this. I'm not going to launch it, but let's just see what we've got here. Okay, no heads up display. Okay, I'm not too sure if my engine's going to go off here. Okay, I may not have found a way to turn this engine off. So if it goes on fire, you know why, because this thing's revving away here. It is in the water, so it'll probably get its cooling. The launch system here, I haven't done this for quite a long time. It's pretty cool. Oops, probably shouldn't have done that. Okay, she's still attached, but you could see there that the rear gate opens. It's going to give it a little tap on the bum. No. Oh yeah, so it's actually got a ramp below the gate. Nice. So I've done a little bit of damage. Probably should have pulled that winch in a bit there. Yeah. So what I think I've done wrong is I opened it. When I retract it, I need to pull her up a bit. So obviously it's disconnecting some connectors here. Now when I pull her back in, no. But there's obviously a few clever things going on there. But these things, again, Stormworks physics, not quite perfect. So here's how you get on the vessel from the back. You see your stairs there. So again, easy access on it. Not too sure what I'm going to do about this engine running, but that's okay. We've got our cargo elevator here. Not so many tie-down. Ah, great, engine stopped. Not so many tie-downs in here this time. But it's the same concept as we've got. When you pick up some containers, you want to store them somewhere safe, bring them down here. And then we're going to go forward, closing this door, like a good sailor, and go down a deck. So actually, the important doors to close are the ones which are your watertight doors with outside access. So that's potentially a leaking space. And then down here we've got our lovely clean engine room. It's similar to some of the other vessels. We've got our engine monitoring console here, and our battery and generator there. So it's keeping up at 99. I read it does have some solar panels. Spider's vessel spawn in ready to go. So sorry, I just hit my microphone, which I like. So you can see here the engine fuel valves are on and there's fuel pressure. Some of the other vessels, which I like as well, require you to go down and switch these things on, but it's not really good for scrambling, if you like, for a rescue. So all these engines are ready to go, and as you know, we start Spider's creations up on the bridge. Then this very cool new space in here. So we've got diving equipment. I've got my scuba gear on, but there's full deep sea diving here. Because we've got here an airlock, and that's why we're getting this kind of water glitch here. So when I open the door, you'll see there's no water in here, hopefully. If there is, we've got our self-draining system throughout the vessel. So I jump in here, close the door, and we're in a kind of dangerous space now, as I found out when I tested this. So I've got my scuba diving gear on. We've got a door here that actually goes out of the bottom of the vessel to the seabed. And you can winch yourself down if you want, or you can pick up equipment from the seabed. So the way it works is I simply open up this door and we get water flooding in. So this is one of the coolest things about Stormworks. The physics engine allows us to simulate flooded spaces like this. So this space is now flooded. Because that's a watertight door, that space through there is not flooded. You can see here some lights have come on. And the seabed is not that much space below the vessels here. And if I'd been smart, I would have brought a torch. So this is probably the first sea trials where we've actually seen the props. And there's a dinghy actually from under the water. So really, really cool. And I want to do some diving missions in Stormworks right now. So there we come in and we can just kind of bob up. We can just swim up here basically. Then what we do to drain it is we close the door, of course. and then we turn on our pump, and this works pretty quick. So I think I was just glitching through that angled part of the ceiling there. You can see here water going down, and that's it. And I'm going to test things here. So I can't actually click the airlock door because there's a sensor here saying, hey, there's water on the side, there's pressure, you don't want to be doing that. Let me just stand up again, so that will disappear, and then I'll be able to open this in a second. It's got a little bit more to go. One thing, this is just Stormworks the game. I'd love to be able to hear the pump going there. That would be very atmospheric if you could hear the kind of, or the sort of the drainage going on there, which I think would add a lot of immersion. But it's just amazing that you can have floodable spaces like that in this game. So there you go. Sensor says there's no water in the compartment, and then the logic says you are okay to open the door. So I'm going to chuck my diving stuff on the floor here. Backspace, in case you're wondering about that. It took me a while to figure that out. And we're going to go work our way up to the bridge. So actually, let's just try and take some shortcuts here. So this should take us onto the rib deck where we were before. And this one will take us up to the helicopter deck, I believe. So we'll just get around the door. So even though when you first play Stormworks, you think the characters have got kind of funny physics. Well, take that back now. They're actually not so bad. You know, when you duck in Stormworks, you would have to duck in real life. So a lot of this stuff happens. And when you come up a ladder there, I just had to do a little jump to the right, so I didn't jump up and go straight back down the hole, which is what was happening here. So we're at that hangar deck. I'm going to climb up outside and up to the bridge deck. So we've got nice storage here. I really like this. Is quite common on vessels to have kind of compartments like this just sitting out above deck. And we've got actually a nice big deck here for, this is where our flares are, and these are our water cannons here left and right, so you can operate them, I think only from outside, but you've got a real nice view. You're actually outside, so probably what you'd want when you're fighting fire. And loads of flares here. Again, climbable mast, you can get right up there and have a good lookout. Beautiful detailing on the bridge, rope anchors everywhere, and we've got this huge foredeck. So this is nice and closed, safe sort of weather deck area here. Then we've got our pretty menacing looking gun. It's actually just a water gun. In real life, some of the Coast Guard in the US especially do have real guns on like this, so it's modelled after something realistic. And again, some nice deck detailing here so that it looks like anchors made with railway wheels or tank wheels you see here. But very nice work to make it look and feel, like a good vessel. So let's take her out. I'm crazy to get her on the water. This big size vessel. So absolutely palatial bridge here. It's the biggest, of course, in Spider's creations. We've got a full-size staircase coming up into it. Some nice room, kind of could be computer operators here. But in general, I like the way it looks. So let's get her started. Fuel on. This turns on a bunch of systems. Engine starting. And I just realized my desktop audio is not coming through too much here, so I'll just give you a bit of engine noise here. You should hear that, so sorry about that. This video has been done like this. Engine comes in with, actually it says 0, but it's actually in 0.1. It stops it from stalling. Let's bring on our visions here. I've turned up the quality of my monitors, as you can see. Radar, and this is all this stuff over here is flares. This is anchor as usual. Got our engine temperatures here, so engines need to warm up to about 35 as far as I remember. Autopilot. Let's get the bridge lights on here, and you can actually hear that engine warming up and revving up there, which I really like. That simulation of the engine, it sounds really good. So we're ready to go. We take the clutch off, and Spider's creations just start moving like this, and I'll give her a little bit more throttle with the 5 key. So it's revving pretty hard. I think she may have gears. 16 knots. Let's take her up. Yeah. Yeah, I hear a gear there. So that's pretty good. Yeah, I hear there's some gears clunking through in the gearbox there. We can check that. Yeah, so there's a little bit of electronics going on there controlling these engines. She will do 33 knots. Engines revving quite high, as you can see here. I'm not too sure what range she has. 56 minutes it's saying here. It's not giving me a range in distance, but that's fine. Just check everything is running away nicely. We're generating power. Yeah, so she runs along as expected. Very nice. Not as fast as the smaller vessels. Simply just require a lot more power. If there's any kind of decent physics simulation to get her up to that speed. Let's bring in some waves. Oh no, I'm forgetting myself. Sorry, here. So we'll do our turning circle test before we just come away from Creative Island there. And I'll do full rudder in. So we can see here, I think that's the fuel base. So she's actually got much bigger turning circle than the other vessels, the smaller vessels, but that's to be expected. That feels realistic. It's not going to be completely nimble like the smaller vessels. So this is what you would bring in, for a major mission. You wouldn't send this, as your fast response vessel. Depending on the weather, you might send your Cheetah or one of the slightly faster, smaller ones if the waves are not too big. But as you'll see later, this is the thing that you want to chomp through pretty big waves. So it's about what speed can a vessel maintain in a certain sea state ultimately. So there's your turning circle, and let's take probably a good minute there at least. And then let's bring in some weather. So 50%. Coming from the side now. So you can see there's very little roll, and I haven't discussed with Spider about this, but I've read in all of Spider's creations there's a automatic stabilization system. So that's why they're so stable compared to some other vessels. It's hardly moving at all. I'm assuming that stabilization consists of fins or trim tabs. So typically you've got fins acting like wings on left and right, or they could be embedded in the hull. As far as I know, Stormworks physics allows that. And these wings basically keep the vessel more or less upright. Just going to adjust my microphone level. No, I'm not. Just going to speak a little bit more quietly. So as you can see there, full power, chomping through the waves very nicely, and that's what you get when you've got a long hull. So you basically, long hulls are your friends in waves for these reasons, that it will bridge two waves, and she won't pitch as much as a short hull, and that's really what you want. So I'm going to bring in full waves. I know that the waves do build up if you leave the time longer. If you leave the weather like this for a longer time, the waves will really build up. So you can see there she's getting a bit of heel from the side wind, and then just a tiny bit of jump here off the back of waves. And again, it's just mostly to do with that long hull length. That's what will stop her from pitching so badly. But you can see there the high freeboard at the front, so basically that high deck, the raised front of a ship. It's always very important if it's going to go into any kind of big waves like this. So she's almost able to run at full speed here. You can see she's just doing a bit of jumping. I'll try and bring her more directly into the wind. She's actually making very good speed through the water. 30 knots. So I'm going to slow her down into something maybe more realistic, kind of speed. So I reckon you'd probably, in a big ship like this, maybe we'd have to do like 15, 16 knots. Tap her down a bit. Yeah. So this is kind of, when people say Stormworks physics is weird, it's really not too bad. This is the kind of speed that you'd probably be able to manage. And you can see when you slow things down in Stormworks, the physics actually look pretty good. They've got a bit of propeller immersion there, and she's jumping quite a lot. So it's actually pitching more at this speed than she was in full power. But again, all the Spider's creations just handling this kind of weather really, really well. So you're hardly getting anything over that weather deck at the front there, because it's got a real high, 2 decks or 3 decks up actually. You can see there that she's hardly getting any water in the front, and that's pretty much what you'd have on a ship of this size. You'd get splash, of course. There you go. There's a full wave across the deck, and only every so often you would get like a wave across the deck, like the YouTube videos you see. I'm just going to slow her down a bit more. 10, 11 knots, again, quite realistic. Then actually you get into a state where the vessel is actually not going through the waves much at all. So if I was the captain here, I'd give her a bit more power, because you want her to punch a little bit through the waves, otherwise you just get stopped. So smaller vessels, if they don't have the power, they'll just be stopped by waves, choppy waves, because the wave is of course pushing the boat down the wave, surfing, gravity and all that. So just at this state, the wave is really pushing the boat backwards, because a big ship like this is going to have momentum. And you need a little bit of power in to punch through the waves and keep that momentum going here. So it's quite interesting, the Stormworks physics. I think you can get pretty realistic effects going on here. So let's calm down the wind. Just bring it back to sort of normal wind levels, I would say. We'll do our little nighttime test. So we'll bring on instrument lights, navigation, deck lights, search lights, and we'll put her into nighttime mode. So, yeah. And we'll go outside, see what she looks like. So no blues and twos. It's not really appropriate for a vessel of this size, where it's not going to do fast response. But as you can see, she's got very powerful lights, side lights, underwater lights. You can actually see nice sort of phosphorescence or lighting on the props, which is I find fantastic. It's great detail in this, and the smoke, of course, very smoky engines in Stormworks, being lit up as well there. So the lighting in Stormworks is actually fantastic, considering it's such a in some sense the graphics are simplified. So that's all from me. That's the Condor Mk.1. It's the largest of the rescue vessels from Spider. It's a really good ship. It's great if you want a bit more ship to play with. It's got, as you can see there, 1, 2, 3, 4 decks. It's got a moon pool in the bottom, which you can just see the 2 lights there, fore and aft of it. A helicopter, a rib, so a lot more to play with. Of course, Stormworks physics and multiplayer make it kind of difficult to get all of this stuff working, but we have had the helicopter up and the rib up. I think that was it actually. Everything worked actually pretty well in multiplayer. It's just my friends didn't know how to fold the helicopter plate, which resulted in some head chopping off and some frustration. But great vessel, good looking vessel, purposeful bridge again. I love the sporty kind of exhaust, the funnels there. A lot of beautiful detailing on it. So it's a great vessel, handles really well. And yeah, I'd recommend it for a bit of multiplayer rescue work. It's not the fastest ship, of course, it's the smaller ones in the series. And the other thing which I really like to do is to use one or more of Spider's vessels together. So bring this in with the Ocelot, one of the smaller vessels, and have that running around. Yeah, you pretty much cover all your bases with a vessel with a helicopter on it and a rib. And just one final word there. I did read in the discussion, in the comments of the workshop, the helicopter and the rib, I think they despawn after 6 kilometers away from the mothership. But you can basically get around that by spawning in the helicopter separately and flying it over. So I'm not too sure what game mechanic that is. Yeah, you might want to just be aware of that. Just going to turn off the searchlights, see what she looks like. Steaming modes, turn off the deck lights. So this is pretty much what you would see in the distance, bearing down on you. So put it back on daylight mode before I sign out. Thanks for watching again, and we'll be moving on to other creations from Lorgs, from Vitus, from Mr. N. Jersey. I'll do sea trials reviews. I'll just keep going. So thanks for your comments. I did see a few people commented. It's really nice to get that feedback. I do these mostly for my own interests, but of course I'm very happy to get your feedback, and if anybody wants to know anything more about naval architecture or shipbuilding software and IoT software, then just let me know. Alright, that's all for now. Catch you later. Bye bye.